year 101 AD, the most powerful army in history crossed the Danube River with one unshakable belief, that nothing on earth could stop them. Rome had crushed Carthage, humiliated Greece, swallowed Egypt whole. Its legionaries were war machines tempered on 3 continents. But on the other side of that river, something was waiting. A tribe that forced Rome to redesign its own armor mid-war, a king who had spent decades studying Rome, specifically to destroy it using Rome's own methods, and a weapon that left the most battle-hardened soldiers in the ancient world completely frozen. In autumn of 101 AD, the first Roman legionaries who crossed into combat returned with injuries no Roman military doctor had ever recorded. These were not the usual wounds from spears or swords. They were cuts made at a downward angle, clean, precise, and deep. Cuts that pierced the Roman shield and continued into the arm holding it. The Dacian falx didn't strike. It hooked. Its curved blade arsed over the flat surface of the scutum, the standard Roman rectangular shield, exploiting the one angle it was never designed to defend. The physics was straightforward. The consequences were devastating. The Roman scutum was considered invulnerable, not metaphorically, technically. 3 layers of laminated wood, covered in leather, reinforced at the center with an iron boss. It weighed up to 10 kilograms and had withstood spears, swords, arrows, and rocks hurled from fortress walls. For 5 centuries, Roman battlefield strategy rested on a single certainty: the shield holds. The Dacian falx shattered that certainty in a matter of weeks. Veterans who had fought in Britannia, Africa, and the East reported something that had never appeared in a Roman military document before: collective panic at the front line, not from exhaustion, not from being outnumbered, from a weapon that made their most trusted equipment useless. Rome's response revealed exactly how serious the damage was. During the same campaign, while the war was still being fought, Roman military engineers designed, produced, and distributed a piece of armor that had never existed in the Roman army: the manica. An articulated sleeve of iron and leather covering the sword arm from wrist to shoulder, built with overlapping segments so the arm could still move freely in combat. The manica was sophisticated, it was expensive, and it was completely unprecedented. In 500 years of warfare, no enemy had ever forced Rome to redesign its armor in the middle of an active campaign. Trajan's Column, the commemorative monument built in Rome after the Dacian Wars, records this fact with the precision of a forensic document. In the stone reliefs carved before the Dacian battles, the legionaries have no manica. In the reliefs from the Dacian campaign itself, they do. Not on every soldier. Only on those in the front line. Only on those facing the falx directly. The column is, among other things, a permanent record of the moment Rome admitted its standard equipment was no longer enough. For context, during the 5 major campaigns preceding the Dacian Wars, including the conquest of Britannia, the wars against the Parthians, and the Rhine campaigns, Rome made 0 structural changes to its armor. 5 campaigns. 5 different enemies. No modifications. The Dacian falx accomplished in weeks what no army had managed in 5 centuries. Rome won the First Dacian War in 102 AD. The treaty terms were designed to humiliate. Decebalus had to surrender his weapons, demolish his fortresses, expel Roman deserters from his territory, and, most significantly, accept Roman military engineers onto Dacian soil to supervise compliance. Rome called this victory. Modern historians are less certain. Decebalus signed the treaty in public, with full Roman protocol. No record describes resistance or negotiation, only acceptance. What Rome failed to record was what happened next. The Roman engineers sent to supervise the treaty were the finest technical minds of the ancient world. They understood sloped wall construction to deflect projectiles, hydraulic engineering for mountain water systems, the mathematics of observation towers with optimal sight lines. Decebalus gave them translators, lodging, and complete freedom to move through his territory, including fortresses the treaty didn't require him to modify. Rome had sent its best engineers into Dacia. Decebalus made them his teachers. Between 102 and 105 AD, the peace period Rome had imposed, Archaeological records at Sarmizegetusa Regia, the Dacian capital, show an explosion of construction unlike anything in Dacian history. New walls, reinforced towers, reformed access routes built on engineering principles that had not existed in Dacian architecture before the treaty. Underground cisterns carved into mountain rock using Roman hydraulic techniques. Grain stores capable of sustaining a garrison through a prolonged siege. Decebalus had not used the peace to surrender. He had used it to build a better fortress, financed by the gold Rome never found, designed with the knowledge Rome had handed him. In 105 AD, Decebalus attacked again. It was not an impulsive act. It was the product of 3 years of deliberate preparation. He struck the Roman provinces of Moesia and Pannonia, territories Rome considered part of its core Danubian administration, essentially inviolable. He did it while Trajan was in Rome, occupied with Senate business. The message needed no words. The treaty had never been a surrender. It had been a pause. Trajan returned to Dacia in 105 AD with the largest army Rome had ever committed to a single campaign. Approximately 150,000 soldiers, auxiliary cavalry from 12 provinces, specialized engineering units, and Apollodorus of Damascus, the greatest architect of the empire, tasked with building a permanent bridge over the Danube to make the occupation final. Rome was not coming to win another war. It was coming to make sure this war could never happen again. In the summer of 106 AD, the Roman army completed its encirclement of Sarmizegetusa Regia. The strategy was methodical. Cut the aqueducts supplying the upper city, block every mountain road with permanent garrisons, establish camps at all 4 cardinal points around the fortress, and wait. Rome didn't need to assault the walls. It only needed time. Even a fortress built with Roman engineering had a calculable limit. The Roman engineers who had supervised its construction 3 years earlier knew that limit precisely. The siege was an equation with a known solution. What Rome didn't anticipate was the decision Decebalus made before the equation reached its conclusion. When it became clear the fortress could not hold indefinitely, Decebalus summoned the remaining Dacian nobles, not to negotiate a surrender, not to plan a final breakout, but to give instructions. What should be destroyed, what should be preserved, what the generations who came after should find, and what they should not. The meeting lasted several hours. When it ended, Decebalus walked out alone, east, into the mountains he knew better than any Roman alive. The Roman cavalry unit sent to pursue him was among the best in the empire. The Moesian auxiliaries, veterans trained specifically for pursuit and capture in mountain terrain. Their commander was a decurion named Tiberius Claudius Maximus, whose later career was documented on his funerary stele. One of the few primary sources that directly records the final days of Decebalus. The trail wasn't difficult to follow. Decebalus moved with a small group, and mountain terrain leaves evidence for experienced trackers. What the cavalry didn't know, as they closed the distance, was that Decebalus had already seen them, and that he had already decided what he would do. Tiberius Claudius Maximus found Decebalus in a mountain clearing, the funerary stele, discovered in Greece in the 20th century, describes the moment with the stripped-down language of a military report. The decurion reached the Dacian king, and the king took his own life before capture was possible. What the stele doesn't describe, but what later accounts reconstructed from multiple testimonies do, is what happened in the seconds between the moment Decebalus saw the Roman cavalry and the moment he acted. He didn't negotiate. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't ask for terms. He drew his curved sword with the same calm he had shown when signing the peace treaty 4 years earlier, and he used it. A Roman general who served in the Dacian campaign wrote years later that when it happened, the soldiers who had been about to capture Decebalus stopped. Not on command, not by protocol. They stopped because they couldn't move. These were veterans of 3 wars, men who had watched companions die in Britannia on the Rhine in the Arabian desert. But in that clearing, watching a man choose death rather than be paraded through Rome, something in them encountered a form of courage that the entire Roman military vocabulary had no word for. Rome took Decebalus's head back to the capital and displayed it on the steps of the Capitoline Hill as proof of total victory. Trajan celebrated his triumph with 123 days of public festivals, and never obtained the victory he had gone to find.